Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for joining me for this interview today. I'd like to start by asking you, as an architect, what does the term adaptive reuse mean?
I can tell you what adaptive reuse means in the context of Beyer Blinder Belle's work. To us, adaptive reuse means the creative reuse of existing and historic structures for a different function. That could be the definition of it, but in its greater meaning, it means giving new life to old buildings and new chapters to old structures.
And why do you think that's important? Why do we not simply demolish our buildings when they reach the end of their useful lives?
In a world that is so focused on sustainability, particularly in the architecture and construction world, as it should be, adaptive reuse is probably one of the most sustainable approaches you can take to architecture, in that the embodied energy that's inherent in a building structure prior to its demolition has such great value. And to demolish and start over again is an extraordinary misuse of that energy. So we see preservation, restoration, and adaptive reuse as an inherently sustainable solution from an architectural point of view, not to mention the preservation of our cultural and historic resources.
Broadly speaking, before we move into one specific case study, within your work in adaptive reuse, do you notice any particular or different series of challenges that you get confronted with as opposed to working with a greenfield site or a completely new site?
Sure. I mean, one of the greatest challenges is just getting to know a building deeply, just like one gets to know a person deeply in a relationship. Our relationship to our buildings when we're working with existing buildings is an intimate one. We need to get to understand how the building was built, why it was built the way it was, what were the changes over time, and that is such a crucial process in the beginning of any type of renovation or rehabilitation project. So I think one of the greatest challenges is just to have a very, very deep understanding of why the building was designed the way it was, where the changes were made over time, and why those changes were made. And that helps us not only in terms of the nuts and bolts of construction, how to make changes, but also to have a deeper understanding of what the inherent logic behind the building is, and whether our adaptive reuse can work within that logic or bend the bounds of that logic as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. My pleasure. Nice questions.